everyone. I hope all of you are doing well. I welcome you all to the fourth episode of the World Economy Brief, wherein we are going to talk about India's secret deal and why the world is watching. अब इंडिया ने क्या किया? एक सीक्रेट डील लेकर आए. इंडिया की डिप्लोमेसी हैज पोजीशनड इंडिया इनटू अ वेरी डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ सिनेरियो जहां हम यूएस इसराइल की भी साइड नहीं ले रहे हैं एंड वी आर आल्सो नॉट टेकिंग द साइड ऑफ ईरान. वी आर इन अ न्यूट्रल लैंडस्केप एंड इट हैज रियली हेल्प्ड अस इन सिक्योरिंग आवर स्ट्रेटेजिक ऑटोनॉमी. आज हम इसी की बात करेंगे. नाउ बिफोर आई बिगिन आई वांट यू ऑल टू सब्सक्राइब, फॉलो, लाइक एंड शेयर कर दो अपने फ्रेंड्स के साथ, बिकॉज दिस सीरीज इज गोइंग टू बी अ डील ब्रेकर फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू. एंड यहाँ पे हम ऐसी बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ों के बारे में पढ़ते हैं जो आपको बहुत हेल्प करेगी एज अ पर्सन टू ग्रो, टू बिकम इंटेलेक्चुअली स्ट्रांग. जियोपॉलिटिकली आपको बहुत सारी चीज़ें पता चलेंगी बिकॉज वी आर गोइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड the things that are happening in the world through an economic lens, and that is what my motive is over here. So let us not waste time and let us begin with our session today. I am going to talk about India's secret deal over here and why the world is watching. अब ये है episode 4 of your series. Let's take a look at what I'm going to discuss with you. अब हमने पिछली बार we talked about the Strait of Hormuz, how it is a very narrow strait which covers the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, जो हमें Arabian Sea से connect करता है, which further this becomes a connection route towards India, and that is why Strait of Hormuz is very important because we import a lot of stuff from here, whether it's crude oil, whether it's LPG, whether it's LNG, and our exports also go a lot to the West Asian region. So अब क्या हुआ that Iran had closed the Strait of Hormuz, had initially threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz, and बाद में उन्होंने close भी कर दिया था. They were not allowing any ship to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. What was the scenario? Let's take a look at the official data over here. If I talk about before the war scenario, जो normal trade transit होता है, normal daily transit volume था, that was 138 ships per day, which reduced to three ships per day in week 3. मतलब कि almost total blockade था in the Strait of Hormuz. And around 400 plus जो vessels थी, they were stranded, they were waiting in the Gulf of Oman. This was the problem which was happening. That means Strait of Hormuz was effectively dead during that period. And this I'm talking about 15th March right now. Iran का rule क्या था? What was Iran's rule? Only vessels going to China, going to India, going to Turkey, going to Pakistan will only pass. ये ही ईरान ने अलाउ किया. And ships with US, European, Israeli or Gulf state connections were blocked, were attacked. And at least, listen to this very carefully, at least 16 vessels were stuck near Fujairah and the Gulf of Oman. यानी कि इतने सारे vessels were stranded. That was what was happening during this period. That is what was happening over here. ठीक है? अब क्वेश्चन ये है, the most important question which people were also which major countries like US, these countries were shocked to see the diplomacy that India had made. How India got ships through when nobody else could. यहाँ पे इंडिया की जो न्यूट्रल स्ट्रैटेजी है, नॉन अलाइनमेंट स्ट्रैटेजी है, that worked over here. Let's talk about it. Now see, on 12th March, Jaishankar, our foreign minister, he spoke to Iranian foreign minister, Mr. Abbas. So Mr. Abbas के साथ उन्होंने बात की. This was the third conflict since the conflict. So he was already in diplomatic talks with Iran. So maritime safety was top of the agenda. What was the agenda? That we need to ensure maritime safety. Now India's crude tanker reached Mumbai port because of our diplomacy. Indian LPG carriers, two LPG carriers, Shivalik. You have to remember the name Shivalik, Nanda Devi. Shivalik, Nanda Devi. They were allowed to pass through Strait of Hormuz, and that is because of Jaishankar's diplomacy. India repatriated 180 crew of Iranian warship against that. Now, obviously, this was not just a one-sided deal. Iran had also put up some conditions. अभी next few slides में देखते हैं क्या conditions थी, ठीक है? So then on March 16, Jaishankar had told the Financial Times in Brussels that my talking has yielded some results. तो कोई भी formal deal नहीं कही. So Jaishankar said that there is no formal deal. Every ship we are going to talk about, every ship we are going to deal with individually. तो हम individually उसको deal करेंगे. On March 17, LPG carrier Shivalik had arrived, in the Mundra port in Gujarat, and second carrier Nanda Devi भी कुछ दिनों बाद it came to India. It arrived in India. ठीक है. 22 Indian vessels were still stranded. तो वो एक cost है अभी भी, and negotiations are still ongoing. So basically, what I'm trying to say over here is that it was because of India's stocks that we were allowed, our LPG carriers were allowed to pass Strait of Hormuz and reached India. That is the kind of diplomacy, that is the kind of non-alignment policy that India has followed. Right now, what did India give Iran? This is not a one-sided deal, like I told you. So what did we give Iran that Iran immediately, after those diplomatic talks, Iran agreed for LPG tankers and for Indian warships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this is the quid pro quo, which nobody admits. So Iran allowing Indian ships to get through the Strait of Hormuz is a vindication of India's policy of neutrality. ये कहा chairman of Kalinga Institute of Indo-Pacific Sciences Chintamani Mahapatra ji ने ये statement लिया that Indian ships which were allowed to come through the Strait of Hormuz is because we have always been neutral. This is the diplomacy that has been decoded over here. And so what did India give Iran? First of all, the warship repatriation. So India ने ना 180 crew members of an Iranian warship जो इंडिया में ही थे. Actually, these members of an Iranian warship, they were caught in Indian waters. जब conflict had started, so these were the crew members which were found in Indian waters. So Iran said that you return all of those crew members and we'll allow your ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Jaishankar called it a goodwill gesture ki theek hai, fine, no problem. Because why was this important? Why did we allow the exchange of that? So that we can secure ourselves because our national security was our priority. National security was our priority. I hope you guys are getting what I'm trying to say over here. Our strategic autonomy, means more important than all of these deals. So it's like a goodwill gesture. And what helped in taking up this decision was our neutrality, that we do not take any sides. And I've always emphasized this. So recently, I had a lecture also that I took up with, uh, this South universities in the South, Rotaract Club of Ramanagara and Rotaract Club of Shantiniketan. So they had organized a lecture where I went as a guest lecturer. So I had talked about this thing over there very extensively. If you guys want to watch out that video, I have the link with me. You can comment in the, you can put a comment in the comment section, and I will share the lecture with you. It is going to really help you out. As I was talking about neutrality, the decision why we were allowed to pass on the ships is because of our neutrality. India refused to condemn US Israel strikes on Iran. India refused to take any sides related to US and Israel, and it did not even take any side related to Iran. So it really helped us in taking up the decision. Right, let me just show you the third part over here. So India had denied formally. Jaishankar denied. Okay, so basically, what I'm trying to say over here is that Jaishankar, our foreign minister, properly and explicitly said that every ship is going to be taken care of differently, and there was a no official deal. Because तो ऐसा भी तो हो सकता था ना that US would say, that you are taking sides of Iran in this case, है ना? But India denied the fact that we are not taking any side, and in fact each decision is going to be taken up individually. कोई formal deal नहीं हुई है. That is India representing its non-alignment with any country. So it wants the benefit from Iran as well. It wants the benefit from US as well. I hope this is clear, all of you. Right. Now, the most important thing over here. Look at the new geopolitical axis that is forming, and it is forming really fast. Look at this. So, Iran had blocked a few areas from passage of the ships and all, and some were allowed. Okay, and what was Iran's strategy behind it? Let's discuss about that. So, if I talk about US, Europe, Israel, and the Gulf states, they were not allowed to send warships through the Strait of Hormuz. Ships were attacked. The ships belonging to these countries were attacked. They were denied any passage. Then Trump called on France, UK, Japan, South Korea, China, but there was complete silence from all. And you're going to be really intrigued with this thing. We're going to talk about this in the next slide. All of these countries, US had sought help from all of these countries, and all of them literally silenced and did not, respond to the US. Right? So let's discuss about that in the next slide. And warships from India, China, Turkey, and Pakistan were allowed. So Iran was selectively permitting these nations. A new geopolitical axis, like non-Western countries that maintained Iran ties. So all the non-Western countries that maintained Iran ties, they now had an energy advantage, like India. So India is a non-Western country, and it also maintained its ties with Iran. So India did not just destroy its ties with the US or the Iran. We were neutral, and that is why our ships were also allowed. Right, right. And so, what was Iran's strategy over here? Let me just again go from here. Okay, so what was Iran's strategy? Iran is going to inflict the pain, but very selectively. So Iran is still exporting 16 million plus barrels of its own oil to China and blocking others while profiting. So Iran's strategy is completely different. So Iran is profiting also and selectively allowing. It is selectively allowing countries, passing country ships passing through it. All right, all right. But here's the catch. Here's the catch. While Jaishankar had negotiated, India had declared an energy emergency. So, what did India? How did India respond? First of all, emergency powers invoked. So, India directed refiners to maximize the LPG production, cut sales to industry. So, a lot of things, propane, butane, and all were diverted towards these LPG cylinders. So, emergency powers were invoked. Secondly, 133 million households were at risk. India invoked emergency powers to protect these 333 million households that depend on LPG transitioning through the Strait of Hormuz. Because that is why these emergency powers were invoked. Thirdly, panic buying warnings were also provided by the government. Yes, stop panic buying the LPG cylinders, because if you start hoarding it, it is going to be a problem for us as well and for you as well. So, India said that, stop panic buying, and these warnings were also provided, right, by the Indian government. And thirdly, and fourthly, the 22 vessels were still stranded. So that was a negative downside, that we still only two LPG tankers were allowed, but there were around 22 vessels, Indian ships which were carrying crude, which were carrying LPG, LNG from that strait, each awaiting individual clearance from Tehran. That is what uh, Jaishankar had also said, right? That we are individually dealing with all of these. We're individually dealing with all of the vessels. So 22 vessels were still stranded over there. So India's home crisis was also, developing a little bit. So that is why India declared an emergency, energy emergency. And the best part is, this is what you need to understand. Trump called for help and nobody came. This shows something about his leadership. This shows something about him which the world is not agreeing to. This is a signal that they are not agreeing to what Trump is actually doing. And it might be even possible that Trump might not be elected in the next elections. This is so. Let's talk about China first. So China straightly refused, and it would obviously refuse. Iran's oil flows to China very freely, and obviously there's no incentive to help. Trump, and obviously U.S. China, they're always in a tussle. France was silent because European nations now, they do not really get into war. So since your 1945. Western Europe has become so integrated with each other that they don't really get into fights and all. They don't get into wars and all. So European nations are always unwilling to escalate anything. So they were also silent. Japan was silent. Again, no warships were offered. South Korea was silent. No public response to Trump's call at all. UK was silent. Again, no naval commitment made. India, as it is, we were always neutral. So we were negotiating independently, not joining any US coalition. We were negotiating with them completely independently. So you can see here that Trump called for help, but nobody came. This tells you something about Trump as a leader, and I think nobody is really agreeing to what he's doing. So he's actually created a lot of havoc, and he has actually disrupted the global economy, and nobody's talking about that. Right. So let's talk about India's balancing act now. See, India has always been a negotiator. India has always balanced out everything. India has always been extremely neutral. It has always had this non-alignment thing over here, right? So, if I talk about the risks and rewards of India being neutral, let's talk about it. So, what are the strategic wins of being neutral? Let's talk about that first. So, first of all, it proved India's diplomatic value. That India has this diplomatic nature that it can talk to both the sides. It got through ships when US, Europe, Japan, all of these powerful countries, they could not they could not bring through the ships from the Strait of Hormuz. India is positioned as a neutral mediator, rare, and it is very, very valuable in a polarized world. India maintained energy supply for around 333 million plus households, despite all of this crisis. And Jaishankar's credibility on the global stage has significantly been enhanced. But of course, there are risks ahead as well. For example, India's US tilt is now obvious, and that might even weaken Iran's leverage because we can't really go against US. US has always maintained its hegemony, and we can't really go against US and support Iran. Secondly, if I talk about the other risk, it is related to the Chabahar port. The Chabahar port is in Iran, and that is where our investments lie. So the funding might cut over there. So we might lose our strategic foothold in Iran. 22 ships are still stranded, so we don't know what is going to happen. Any escalation could shut India out completely. And also we have to be very careful in whatever decision that we make. Opposition is also questioning if neutrality is compromising energy security. Okay, so these are some downsides that we can think about. So see, whatever decision any country makes, there's always going to be a positive part of it, always going to be a negative part of it. But India, by always being neutral and balancing act, has managed to keep its strategic autonomy in the forefront. That is what you have to understand over here. What are the key takeaways from all of this is that India's diplomacy has succeeded where US, Europe, and Japan all failed. That shows something about India's leadership over here. Their strait went from 138 ships per day to 3 ships per day. Largest oil disruption which has been recorded in history. A new geopolitical axis is forming. India, China, Turkey, Pakistan, they have an energy axis. The other does not, others don't. The West does not. That is a questionable thing. India's neutrality is a strategic asset. India's neutrality is not cowardice. India's neutrality is a strategic asset. But it's the US tilt which might erode this advantage with Iran. So that is the negative side of it. 22 Indian vessels are still stranded, and this story is not over. We still have to, see what is going to, happen later on. Uh, Now, can the world escape recession? Is the next question that we are going to discuss upon. Can the world escape recession? This is what we're going to understand in the next episode because there were four central banks and they took up their decision. How these central banks' decisions impacted India is what we are going to discuss in our very next episode. Okay, and what you have to do with your money, that we are going to discuss. What was RBI's response, India's RBI's response, that we are going to discuss. So I hope that you've understood this particular session of the World Economy Brief. I hope you've understood how geopolitics, how economics is evolving over a period of time. If you like this session, you gotta wait for the next session itself, and do not forget to subscribe to my channel, like, share, and follow with your friends. And I hope that you liked such sessions, and I hope that these sessions are helpful for all of you and you're able to understand geopolitics in a different manner through an economics lens. So I'm sharing with you all of these QR codes. This is the QR code for my Telegram channel, my WhatsApp channel, my YouTube channel, and my Instagram channel. If you want to understand geopolitics, economics in this manner, you've got to follow me on all of these channels. And I'm going to meet you in my next class, next episode, wherein we are going to talk about that is it inevitable? Can the world escape recession or not? So that is all. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead, and I'll see you all in my next one. Bye bye.